Good morning, friends. How are you doing this fabulous morning? So great to have you here with me. If you have a moment, I encourage you to grab a mug or some juice or curl up in your favorite chair and just kick back and relax for a few minutes. Thanks for being here. If this is the first time for you to catch any of my live broadcasts, my name is Renee Harden and I am an editor. I'm a content writer. I'm a writing educator, writing coach, former high school English literature teacher and academic writing teacher. Mm, I love all things words, and I especially love all things coffee. So I hope you'll kick back with me and start your morning off with some conversation, and we catch up about some interesting things that happened in this past week and talk about this being the last day of July. How is that possible? How's that? Tomorrow is August 1st. Are you ready? Are you ready for like the last 5 months of the year? Because from here on out, we're rolling into back to school and the holidays, and then before we know it, it'll be Christmas. So if you're watching live, good morning, my friend Cheryl. How you doing? Thanks. Thanks. Miss your face. Miss your family. Hope you're doing well. Hope all those grandbabies are doing well. Always fun to see my friends pop in here. Good morning. There's my sweet girl, my daughter, who was just here this past week visiting with the grand dog, Gabe, and her boyfriend, Garrison. And okay, guys, seriously, I cut my finger this morning making coffee. How do you do that? Well, I was cutting something, the little, the creamer and the little pull tabs that you pull out from there. Yeah, so I was cutting it up and I was holding it in my hand. Sliced my finger. Nothing major, but hello, right before the live broadcast, right? Oh, it's crazy. Good morning, Sherry. How are you doing? Thanks. You know what? Hey, not bad, not bad. I had a major milestone yesterday that I'll share in just a minute. Good morning, Whitney. Oh, you gorgeous champion badass woman that you are, working alone today in medical records office, writing a risk management report. So glad you are here too, Whitney. So glad to see you. Just hang in there, precious. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Another granddaughter on the way due in October. Yes, looking forward to the rest of the year. Right. You'll keep me company. Yes, you'll keep me company for now. Yes, absolutely. Guys, it's so great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining, watching. I love to do this little live stream thing here on all the socials. I try to share it with friends. And boy, how about all the socials and all the new things Facebook is doing? If you're a part of my VIP group, I've been sharing in there all of the new features that are rolling out for Facebook. All the new things that they are beta testing. Get ready, guys. It's crazy. But we have to use these social media tools effectively to stay in touch, like we're doing right now. So thanks for joining me, having a cup of coffee. It's always great to see all my sweet friends and say hi to all those that are joining live in the broadcast. If you happen to be catching this via replay, thanks for doing that too. I know some people can't always catch me live, so I appreciate those who do go back and try to catch up on the video afterwards when they get a chance to log in. A lot of folks on the West Coast, it's early morning for them. Some folks on the East Coast, they're like already heading into the mid-morning, beginning of their afternoon. But wherever you're joining me from, thanks for being here. So today's mug of the day. I'm so happy to have it. It came to me from Hawaii. It says mahalo and aloha oi, which means farewell, to Love's Bakery. Love's Bakery. Guys, Love's Bakery, who would have been 170 years old on the Hawaiian Islands. But of course, due to COVID, due to some of the stresses of what happened with the pandemic, Love's Bakery shut down in Hawaii, but I was able to snag a mug, a special commemorative mug before they went all pow and went away. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying a lavender latte this morning. I hope wherever you are, you're joining something. Yeah, so sad to hear about that. But here's the thing, guys. If one thing this pandemic has taught us is that things will be shaken, and those things that needed to have some light shown on them to show us what we're really dealing with, that happened. Some things that needed to go, they went. Some things that needed updating and attention definitely were put into the forefront. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning as we talk about back to school. So I was out doing some shopping the last couple of days, getting some things for the house. And no matter where I went, even in like the Container Store and Bed Bath & Beyond, all of their displays are changing to back to school. I mean, it's still hot. I still want to go sit in the pool. Okay. It's still summertime to me. I don't know about you. Some kids have already started back. I've talked to some people who they're already in their second week of school because they're on a year-round schedule. So they're already back in their second week of school. Some kids start next week. I know here in Dallas, we have 3 different start dates, depending on where you live in certain counties, in certain areas here in Dallas, in the Dallas Independent School District. They have 3 different start dates. So I think one is the 9th. Let me look on my calendar here. One is the 9th. One is the 16th. Let me see here. One is the 9th, one is the 16th, and one is the 23rd. My daughter will be going back to school. She's going back to college, and she starts on the 23rd. I know most universities start then, but some schools are starting here just in the next week or so. So how about where you are? Is school starting back where you are? I'm glad that you're excited for school, Savannah. I'm really glad that you're excited. And for those of you that are watching this via my personal profile, I'm watching your comments live on my screen over here because they don't pop up in my software here. You are definitely excited for school to start. Yes, for many, it's a relief, especially after this past year and a half of just, the craziest school schedules and the craziest years for students to have to deal with. And so what we're going to talk a little bit about this morning are all the things that happen. But first, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the news this week. I don't know about you, but Michael and I have been enjoying watching the Olympics. It's just, there's so many channels covering so many things. And we talked about yesterday getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the soccer game, the women's soccer. Listen, the men's soccer team didn't even qualify. The women's soccer team has advanced. So we're excited about that. Watching golf. Some of the players, I know them from watching the different golf tournaments that have come up since I went to the Masters and learned about sportsing on that level. But so many different sporting events. I don't know about you, but I've learned about so many countries that have participants representing them in the Olympics, right? I love the skateboarding has been made a sport. It's almost like the X Games have joined the Olympics. So, and for the first year, and this is a shout out to my island home, a shout out to the first woman to win the gold for surfing. Shout out to Carissa Moore from Oahu, Hawaii, my island home, winning. Of course, we should have a Hawaiian win the first gold medal for surfing. The sport started in Hawaii. So I'm so excited about that. But, watching things like ping pong, badminton. I mean, there's so many different sports that we've watched. School starts in Wisconsin on September 1st. See, now that is a logical start date. That is a logical start date. It's just too, it's too early. Right, Savannah, you start on the 23rd. Sherry, most schools, colleges in your area begin the last week of August. Okay, good. Because we still need to give the kids the month of August. we don't need to put them in portables in buildings when it's so hot. Yeah, the Olympics are so great. They're so great this year. And I mean, I've learned so much. I learned yesterday, Michael was trying to explain to me that in track, I asked him, why are all the runners staggered? Why is the girl way up front on the outside? Why is she first? But he explained to me that all of the runners are running an equal distance. I think it was the 400 meter. But because they're on a racetrack and the ovals go, from smaller to bigger, they have to stagger the start time so that as they come around the curve, then all of the runners are at the same spot. And I got it. My mind got it. I think my eyes and my visual perception just still is having a hard time rectifying that, because to me it looks uneven. But if they're running just a straight run, he said, well, then they all start. But it's just interesting how they do that. So it's been amazing to watch some of these athletes, and the amount of time it takes to train to become an Olympic athlete and even qualify to make it. That alone is an accomplishment, which I want to sip and salute. But there's been a lot of kerfluffle in this last week about Simone Biles. And I don't know if you've been following the story. You've probably been seeing it come across your feed, and everybody commenting and making their comments. And some of them are mocking her and saying, well, if you like all those endorsements and all that money and contracts, you should have kept with that. But as I started researching a little more and discovered that the IOC wanted to change the way her routines were scored because she's just so good. So they asked her to modify her routine so that they could score her and it would be more fair to the other team members. Well, when you have worked and trained and memorized and focused on and worked on a routine, and then you're asked to change it at the last minute at the Olympics, and mind you, some of these things that these gymnasts do, and I just know this because I was in gymnastics in high school, not on that level, but I did participate in gymnastics my freshman and sophomore year, is that if you change a routine, you're so proud of her for speaking up for herself, right? It's important. If she had changed her routine and some of those moves she has to make where she has to twist, if she lands wrong, it could paralyze her. It could injure her for the rest of her life. She didn't want to take that risk. It threw her off mentally. I mean, who asks an athlete to change their routine because they're so good and it wouldn't be fair to everybody else? So she chose to step back and allow the rest of her team members to represent. And she just could. And then the social media pressure, the hateful comments, that's all coming back. I mean, so many of these athletes, they're under incredible pressure there. They're getting tested all the time. They're in the middle of the Olympics, which in Japan, the COVID cases have been rising. So I'm sure, and they're there without their families. Michael and I were talking about the coverage of Caleb Dressel, the swimmer, when he won, and how he was crying and on screen with his family. They should have just left them alone to have their moment, and not, send it out on screens for the entire world to see him breaking down, crying, and his family. I mean, those are private moments. So I just want to salute all of the athletes, even the ones who are there and they're placing, 8th in the world. They're 8th in the entire world. I'm still sitting here in my house. I'm not even contemplating trying to be an Olympic athlete. So I marvel at the tenacity and the dedication it takes to become an Olympic athlete, right? The learning and the education that goes behind training them, so important. Exactly. You think it's sad she's being penalized for being so good. I agree. It's true. It's true. Yeah, the pressure on those athletes is absolutely insane. And so what do you do? How do you combat something like that? I think she did the right thing. I think her stepping back and being able to say, you know what, I've already won, and I'm already good at what I do, and I don't need to prove myself to the world again. And it's really sad to watch the world We hold up these people so high when they do incredibly well. And then on the turn of a dime, we will vilify and eviscerate them with our words. That's not what we should be doing. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, the strength it takes to do what she did in the midst of the reason she did it, making it especially difficult for her to see and acknowledge. Imagine, that's chutzpah. Exactly, Whitney. I agree. And Simone Biles remains the best. Good for her to make a stand. Right, right. I think some things about the IOC needs to change. I mean, why is Russia's not even officially represented, but they've allowed the Russian Olympic Committee to come in? Really? Really, there's so many things. So again, like I said, the pandemic and the COVID situation is shining a light on so many things in our world that need to change. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. We've needed change in all these areas for many, many years. And what this pandemic did is push those things up and show us, hey, we need to really change some of these things, right? So since we're talking about back to school, I'm going to throw in a little random thing here. You guys familiar with the Blue Man Group, right? I'm wearing blue today. But the Blue Man Group, have you ever seen the Blue Man Group? You know who the Blue Man Group are? They're a group of 3 performers, and they do this whole performance art, music kind of a thing. Really popular show, really funny, comedic. They don't speak, they don't do anything. They're like little robot type people, painted blue. You've probably seen them. Yes, so true, so true. It is. So you've seen the Blue Man Group? You love the Blue Man Group? Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'll bring you back to the Blue Man Group here in a little bit. But one thing I want to talk about as we start back to Sarah, you saw the Blue Man Group in Vegas. Yes, I saw the Blue Man Group in Vegas as well. Aren't they fantastic? If you've seen the Blue Man Group live or in any way, let me know. I would love to see how many of you have seen it. I've seen it, saw them in Vegas. You've seen them live. They're incredible. They're so funny, right? Well, so here's a little something I want to talk about, because we are talking about back to school. I mean, tomorrow is August 1st. And everywhere I went, like I said, I was shopping, and, Bed Bath & Beyond has an entire front end section on, here's all your furniture for your dorm room. Living in a little space like a closet, that was one of the sides. We've got you covered. The Container Store, same thing. They're all, you go into Target, you go into any of the stores, they're all pushing their back to school clothing lines, right? We're all preparing for going back to school. And yet we never stop to think what it's like for our kids who are going back to school after this pandemic. Because right now, school systems can't seem to get it together, right? It's tough. So I don't know if you noticed in the opening video, my daughter's been creating these amazing intro videos for my show that I just completely appreciate. And in them, I try to share a little tidbit of information for you by asking you some questions like, did you know? So did you know? So as of May, here are some stats. As of May 3rd, 2021, only 1% of school districts across the country were fully remote. 1%. 46% were hybrid. 53% were fully open. This was as of May, right, when the school year ended last year. Now, according to the U.S. Census Bureau's Experimental Household Pulse Survey, and this was a survey they took because of the pandemic and what was going on. They used a sampling of data from this survey to give us these numbers. So by the fall of 2020, 11.1% of households with school-age children reported homeschooling, which was up from 5.4% in the spring. It's almost doubling the amount of families that are homeschooling. And I want to share a picture with you because I want to share a little graphic with some information that I found pretty fascinating. Let's see here. Where is my graphic? I'm showing you a graphic. I love showing graphs. But I want to show you some information that I think was pretty interesting about why parents were not sending their children to in-person schooling. So this is a sampling of data from April to May of 2021. And if you notice on the graph at the very top, so these, again, this is the Dornsife Center for Economic and Social Research Understanding America survey. The data was collected between April 14th and May 25th of 2021 from a nationally representative sample of US adults. And this was their response. You notice that the first one, it says in person, not substantially different from online. That was 4%. School safety protocols, uncomfortable for children, 6%. Adults at school were not vaccinated, that's 7%. And on go the results. And you notice at the very bottom, 45% said that it was a safer option for their child and their family, for their children not to return to in-person schooling. Now, there's a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot of people who do not feel right now, and again, and I don't put the blame on the school systems, because the school systems have had to really scramble. And how do you make it work for everybody? What about the children whose parents, they don't even have Wi-Fi at home? And we heard the stories over this last year of children sitting in Wendy's parking lots or McDonald's parking lots or Starbucks parking lots so that they had access to Wi-Fi. And even then, the connection was spotty. And how are children supposed to learn while they're sitting in a parking lot somewhere? I mean, all of those conditions made it so stressful for our kids. So what is the answer? We're probably not going to really know all of the answers, but we do have options. We do have options. Now, for some families, this may not work. They need their children to be in person in school because their children thrive in that setting. They need that interaction. They need some kind of accountable system because both parents are working. Sometimes maybe parents aren't even present and these kids are having to do it on their own. So what's the real answer? And as we go into this school year, we're going to see more and more of this. It's so sad how kids' school experience is being impacted. Yes, and on all levels, not just grade school, universities, people who were, trying to go to school to get their degrees and trying to graduate. I felt for so many medical students who graduated and were thrown into the fire of the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, how's that for starting your medical career off, right? So again, knowing these stats and this data, what do we do? How do we handle dealing with these pressures as we start school? Well, as I've told you before, I love to share great books with you. And a great way that we can learn is to read, read. Reading is a way for us to learn information. I mean, if you're sitting on the internet and looking up sites for things, you're reading, right? Our kids are consuming information digitally at a high rate of speed, but is that information edifying, helping them, equip them for the future, for what they want to do, how they want to shape their lives, how they want to maybe have a career, right? And I don't know about you, I love having my iPad with all of my books on Kindle, but there's nothing like having an actual book in your hand, right? Where you can flip through the pages, where you can look at it, where you can write in it and make notes. It's so important. So I have a dear person who passed away, unfortunately, last year, not of COVID, but of cancer. He was a leading mind in the education sphere. He spoke about change. He spent most of his life dealing with trying to reshape and reform education, and it was Sir Ken Robinson. And so Sir Ken Robinson had a quote. He says, "All children start their school careers with sparkling imaginations, fertile minds, and a willingness to take risks with what they think." And when that school environment is impacted by something like COVID, it can really be stressful. Your teenager got suicidal without interaction. He got his GED instead of going back and being in danger. Right. I mean, and it's difficult because so many of our kids are dealing with that kind of pressure. And because they thrive in that interaction. I know I thrive in personal interaction. Having these kinds of tools to interact with each other is great, but if we can't hug and see each other in person, there's something about one-on-one personal interaction that feeds our souls. You were in nursing school and homeschooling and working in a hospital. Whitney, shall we all just take a moment with let's lift our mugs and salute. Whitney is working in the medical industry. She is a medical professional. And I just want to salute you, Whitney. Single mom, dealing with a teenager who was trying to go through this. Hats off and mugs up to you, my friend. I'm so glad you're still here fighting the good fight. We pray for and lift up all of your colleagues and all of the people who are in the medical profession who are trying to deal with this and deal with what's happening. So how do we handle this? Well, so I have two books that I love. One of them is by Ken Robinson, and his approach to learning and finding out what it is really inside each student, each person. What is their gift? What is it that we can do to help build them up and help them? Oh, listen, Whitney, you deserve it, man. You deserve it. You've doubled down, tripled down, and worked so hard. And so then having to deal with people and be on the front lines of dealing with this COVID pandemic, y'all, this is not a joke. Could we just wear a mask? Could we just get a vaccine? You remember when you had got measles, mumps, and rubella and the chickenpox vaccine, and we had little cards, little shot records that we had to take to the school to show them we've gotten vaccinated? Why is that so difficult now? Why is that such a problem? Right? I mean, I get it. I know some people, are averse to vaccines because they've had reactions, and I get that. I understand. But if you're not going to get vaccinated, then take the precautions necessary to help us keep from spreading this, because people are getting sick. People are dying. It's not like chickenpox or measles, mumps, rubella. The reason why we don't have measles and mumps and rubella rampaging across our nation is because we've been vaccinating for years. And so that has kept it down. But in the meantime, what do we do? How do we help, right? So here's something that I wanted to share. Here's a little something that I want to propose. There's some great books that you can read and learn about. So one of them is called The Element by Ken Robinson. This was one of the first books I got from him. And it says how finding your passion changes everything. So he talks about different people, many famous people that we knew. A teenage boy goes through school and nobody thinks he has any particular musical talent. He goes on to be one of the most famous musicians in the world. He's talking about Paul McCartney. A 9-year-old girl is thought to have a learning disorder. A psychologist thinks otherwise and opens the door to an extraordinary life in dance. Well, that was the woman who created, who worked with and choreographed Cats and several different shows. What was her name? I'm trying to find her name. Right. A young girl in Greece dreams of an academic life and becomes one of America's leading political commentators. Here we go. Paul McCartney, Gillian Lynn, and Ariana Huffington all took different paths to discovering their element, and each was changed profoundly by the experience. So this is a great book that Ken Robinson wrote about finding that element, that thing inside each individual person, inside each individual child, and help fostering that to create an environment for learning that allows them to grow and be who they're supposed to be, right? You've got to run. Listen, no problem, Cheryl. Thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure. Love to you and the family. Give my best to Darren. Yes, adults need boosters of those childhood vaccines. Absolutely. Absolutely. If we want to make sure that those diseases are not running rampant again, of course, we have to get the boosters. We have to. We have to keep ourselves. You had no idea Ken Robinson passed away? Yes. Yours is fully in person, no masks, no distancing. Yikes. Okay. Well, what you gonna do about that? Yes, Ken Robinson passed away yesterday. I mean, passed away last year. I was devastated to find that out. One of the leading voices in education. And my prayer is that many will grab his books, will watch his TED Talks, and will get behind this because our schools, our education system needed to update. It was still in the antiquated, you know, um, ways of doing learning. I mean, I'm surprised they're not still using mimeograph sheets, which I used to love the smell of, by the way, in school. But we need to update. I mean, our world is digital. Our kids need to be equipped to handle careers and take on life in those worlds as technology has advanced. And so if our school systems keep staying in the antiquated way they're doing things, we're going to have serious gaps. We're going to have serious gaps. Good morning, Miss Mary. How are you doing? Good to see you. Well, here's another book that I want to recommend. So The Element by Ken Robinson. You know, I'm always trying to give you guys new book recommendations to help you sort of get some answers to the questions probably you have and look at options because options do exist. Another great book that I love that we did in my book club, a couple, probably 3 years ago, was The One World Schoolhouse by Salman Khan. Salman Khan is the creator of the Khan Academy. If you know what the Khan Academy is, if you've ever accessed it online, you know that Sal Khan created this site at first to help a cousin of his who was going through school and she needed to refresh her knowledge in some basic subjects. Well, this is a new approach to creating a learning environment for your kids that will help them discover their element and grow and learn. So this a free world education for anyone, anywhere. This is the goal of the Khan Academy, a passion project that grew from an ex-engineer and hedge fund online tutorial sessions with his niece, who was struggling with algebra, into a worldwide phenomenon. I remember I accessed his pages for algebra when my kids were going through it. It was so helpful to have tools like that available. Well, you know that I mentioned the Blue Man Group, right? And I wanted to show you why I mentioned the Blue Man Group and a little tie-in to why I brought them up. Because the Blue Man Group is an amazing performance group based out of Manhattan, was purchased by Cirque du Soleil. So now Cirque du Soleil got behind them in 2017 and really pushed them into the spotlight by bringing their shows to places like Vegas and Chicago, New York, and Boston, and have really broadened their appeal worldwide. Well, let's see. Your PTJ has shut down cooking demo, and Sam's has reactivated mask mandates. You are thankful. Khan Academy is brilliant, Sarah. You are absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, we've got to do some interesting things in order to navigate all of this. Well, so here's something that I want to share with you because this is why I brought up the Khan Academy and I brought up things like the Blue Man Group. Why is the Blue Man Group so interesting? Well, I'll show you why. The Blue Man Group, let me get this here on my screen. Let's go back to their main page because the Blue Man Group put together something really interesting that I thought would be a fun thing to show you because it just shows that options on how we educate our children are available if we know about them and if we want to find out more about how to share them. But here's something interesting that I wanted to know. Did you know that the Blue Man Group has a school? It's called Blue School, and it's for grades pre-K, so pre-primary, primary, and middle school, from ages 2 to grades 6 through 8. Blue Man Group started their own school. Isn't that amazing? And so just you can go on and look at all thoughtful admissions, vibrant community, dynamic learning. Look at this, all a drop-in clubhouse, an after-school program. Look, they have a bookshelf, and we'll be getting to that. They have summer reading lists. But I wanted to show you a little bit about the school and their philosophy behind this. So it says, welcome to Blue School. We are happy to have you here with us. I am so honored to begin my journey at Blue School and to welcome you into the Blue School community. At Blue School since its inception in 2006, and they read this book. They read The Element, and they discovered that they could do something a little more. They got involved with Ken Robinson. And so in 2006, they started this school, and it says, we have been reimagining education for the changing world we live in. Now more than ever, we acknowledge how quickly our world can shift, and we are prepared to adapt while supporting, engaging, and interacting with our community of learners. Our balance model is at the core of our pedagogy as we dynamically intertwine academic mastery, self and social intelligence, and creative thinking within our curriculum. Our approach encourages questions, inquiries, and new ways of thinking, and we believe this method of learning sets our students up for success within the constantly changing landscape of our world. How about that? Isn't that amazing? So they have the Blue School. And of course, it was founded by Matt Goldman, who is the founder of the Blue Man Group. So here we have all the co-founders, and it was the Blue Man Group men and their wives who started this. So it says, when my partners and I created Blue Man Group in 1988, we had no idea that our journey would lead us to start a formal education program. How about that? When they started their performance group and started traveling and performing, they had no idea that they would set up a school. But you know what? And I know just from doing this and educating my children on the road while my husband was a lighting designer and touring with big tours. He said, today, in collaboration with our partners and with the motivation of our own children, plus the children in our expanding community, launching and running the Blue School has become our passion. Blue Man Group started as an outrageous idea. We wanted to inspire creativity in both our audiences and ourselves. We wanted to speak up to the intelligence of our audience members while reaching in to their childlike innocence. We wanted to create a special kind of organization, a place where people continually learn and grow and treat each other with just a little more consideration than is usually evident in our real world. We wanted to recombine influences to create something new, and we wanted to have a good time doing it. So you can go here to blueschool.org. You can check out and read all about this. He said, we have created a healthy, warm, safe, nurturing environment where community is paramount and where our children's interactions between classes is just as important as what happens during classes. We have created the kind of educational program we wished we'd had for ourselves and dreamed we'd have for our children, a place where people feel like there is genuinely no better place to learn and grow. We draw from powerful influences, old and new, and recombine these influences with cutting-edge research and a few of our own flourishes to create something the world has never seen. And like Blue Man Productions, we want to have a good time doing it. So they started a parent-run play group, and we have been awed and humbled by the enormity of this project, have been blown away by how far it has come so quickly. In undertaking a project of the magnitude of Blue School, we realized that we needed to balance our outsider's perspective with that of experts from inside the field. To that end, we assembled a team of inspired educators to help us realize our vision. And one of those was Ken Robinson. He sat on the board of the Blue School and helped them create this new approach to education. So, and I was really excited to see. So they have a listing here. I'm going to show it to you here on screen. They have the Blue School bookshelf, a place, different books which some of these I have. So I was very excited to see right down here is The Element by Ken Robinson. Also was, let me get down here. There's one on using literature for exploration. So yeah, Literature as Exploration by Louise Rosenblatt. How teachers need to teach literature in order to engage their students. And it was one book that I read that helped me sort of create the approach that I used for the 12 years that I taught high school English literature studies and academic writing, up against classes like how to build a website or how to code, right? How do you get kids interested in literature and English when you're teaching classes like that? You definitely have not found that passion yet in your 16-year-old. Probably still developing. Sarah, my daughter is 26 and going back to school because she has finally felt like she has truly reached a place of understanding what she needs. Hey, Honey, in Brazil. So great to have you here. You're grateful that your grandkids were homeschooled before the pandemic. Yes. You are going to be a dad again. Myra is 10 weeks. I'm so glad. And Honey, listen, and speaking, this is my same name doppelganger who lives in Brazil. His family, they went through COVID in Brazil. Congratulations to you and your wife, Honey, for expecting a new one. It's focused on text. You can't wait to see her reaction. This is so great. I just now got back over to the comments, Honey. I'm so excited to hear about the new baby. That is so fantastic. I love getting new baby announcements while I'm live on stream. That is so great. Well, so again, the Blue School. So if you look at this list of books that they have, check it out. I'll be sharing again in my VIP group. You guys will be getting the links to this, but go to blueschool.org. You can check out some of these. And so two of the books that are on this list, they're the two ones at the top, I'm going to highly recommend to you. I think they're very important books to have in your house, especially if you want to combine them with these two great books, right? You can combine them with these two great books and round out a range of information to help you decide what are some options to help your kids discover that passion, right? Because they've been through a lot in the last 18 months. And how do you reignite that passion? So I'm going to share a couple of these books with you, talk a little bit about what they are and who the authors are and how their approach to teaching. So one of the first books that was on the list there, let me get this up on the screen here, is called The Storm of Creativity. The Storm of Creativity by Kaina Lesky. Now, Kaina Lesky is a professor in the Department of Architecture at the Rhode Island School of Design, and she's a founding principal of 360 Architecture. But the storm of creativity, she tells us in hers, although each instance of creativity is singular and specific, Kaina Lesky tells us the creative process is universal. Artists, architects, poets, inventors, scientists, and others all navigate the same stages of the process in order to discover something that does not yet exist. It's how our medical professionals ramped up and tried to work hard to find a vaccine to help us combat COVID. It's how engineers come together to build bridges and buildings. It's how writers get inspired and create books. It's how cooks work creatively to create the recipes that they make for fantastic food. So all of us must work our way through the empty page, the blank screen, writer's block, confusion, chaos, and doubt. So in this book, Lesky draws from her observations and experiences as a teacher, a student, a maker, a writer, an architect to describe the workings of the creative process. Lesky sees the creative process as being like a storm. It slowly begins to gather and take form until it overtakes us, right? You've seen a storm moving in and you kind of see the clouds forming, and then you know there's other elements that come in. And when all those elements come together, they create the storm. So she says, it slowly begins to gather and take form until it overtakes us if we're willing to let it. It is dynamic, continually in motion. It starts, stops, rages and abates, ebbs and flows. If you've ever been in the creative process or you've ever been working on something and you get a creative burst and you can really flow, and then you hit a brick wall or you hit a dead end or you're just not feeling it, that's the creative process. So she uses illustrations that accompany each chapter as she maps the arc of the creative process by tracing the path of water droplets as it travels to the stages of a storm. So she uses this analogy to help describe unlearning, ridding ourselves of preconceived notions that we have on how things are supposed to be. And only when we realize what we don't know, we can pose the problem that we need to solve. I used to tell my students that when I graded their paper, I said, stop. First of all, I stopped using red pens and I used purple ones. And I said, when you see my edits or my notes, realize that those are places where I'm just pointing out to you the little gap of information that you don't have right here, or the little bit, or maybe it's a principle in parts of speech or how to write something that I'm trying to show you. That's what I believe tests are. Tests reveal to me what you know and what you don't know. And our job as teachers are to help you solve the problems of what you don't know. So we gather evidence, right? With notebooks, with journaling, we do research, we experiment. And those are the kinds of things that help propel the creative process. We perceive and conceive, we look ahead without knowing where we're going, we make connections. So to illustrate the stage of the creative process, Lesky draws on examples of creative practice that range from Paul Klee to Steve Jobs, from the discovery of continental drift to the design of Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, right? So check out this book, because Lesky tells us that the creative process is ongoing. It's not that it starts and then it ends. It's continual. It's ongoing. So I hope this will be a helpful book for you to read to discover your own creative process and to understand that it's something we're going to deal with all our life. So if you embrace that, you might just find that you'll tap into your element, into the very thing that you've been wanting to do for years. You just haven't really tapped into it yet. So try that book out, The Storm of Creativity. Again, it's the first on the Blue School list. So obviously I would think they know what they're talking about. Some of the most creative guys out there performing and doing what they're doing. So the second book on their list that I thought was really interesting, that kind of helped them sort of form their philosophy on how they were going to start their school, was a book called Our School. And it's written by a gentleman by the name of Sam Shaltrain. Let me get that up on the screen for you here. So it's called Our School, Searching for Community in the Era of Choice. So Sam Shaltain is a national educator, an organizational change consultant based in Washington, D.C. He was the national director for the Forum of Education and Democracy and the founder director of the Five Freedoms Project. You can visit his site at samshaltain.com. But here he's tackling the topic of school choice, of having the option to choose something besides just the public school setting. It's a deeply controversial idea that is dramatically reshaping the face of public education. And like I said, with the pandemic, this has amped this up to a completely new level. Will the wider array of school options help parents and educators identify better strategies for helping all children learn? Or will the high stakes of the marketplace end up privatizing this most public of institutions? So Sam Shaltain believes that before we can answer these questions, we have to put a human face on the modern landscape of teaching and learning. So Our School is a book that documents a year in the life of two schools in the nation's capital. One a new charter school just opening its doors, and the other a neighborhood school that first opened in 1924. Chaltain weaves together the observations and emotions of the people live intersect there and the triumphs and the challenges that they experience. Our school is an important reading for the educational policymakers, administrators, parents, the media, and anyone who aspires to be a teacher. So the book features things like recommendations on how to create a healthy, high-functioning school. It gives a detailed account of what school choice actually looks like and feels like to the people who deal with it. It has a vivid description of a modern day classroom and what it's really like to have to teach in the public school setting. And more important, it focuses on the humanity of teachers with their personal histories, their reasons why they became a teacher, and their day-to-day challenges in having to deal and work in the public education system. And more importantly, it looks intimately at the lives, the inner lives of children, their biggest fears, what they need, their moments of triumph, and understanding of when they come to the realization of learning something new. So, Ken Robinson, from the foreword, he says, what our school shows with passion and precision is that education is about real people leading real lives in real places. If school doesn't engage them, it doesn't work, no matter what the accountants and policymakers may say. That's what this book is really about and why it's so important for anyone who genuinely cares about school, communities, and their children. So it's the book, Our School. And I encourage you to check it out, find out about it, buy it, check it out at your library. I will be sharing links to all of these in my VIP group. And we'll be expanding that conversation a little more. But as we start school, guys, love on your kids. At the end of the day, they are facing challenges just like we are. And they're having to face it with the unknowns, and so are their teachers. Support your teachers. Help your teachers. Contribute to your teachers. If you don't send them with supplies, a lot of times teachers are having to pay for those supplies right out of their own pocket. They do love their students. And I know you love your students. So check out some of these books. Read them. If you have read them or you want to read them, let me know. I'll share the links with those, like I said, in my VIP group. But more importantly, read. It's so important. It's how we learn more about our world. It's how we learn more about each other. And it equips us with tools to engage in healthy conversations, not combative conversations. And if you want to know more about my book club, because we have a book club, we're going to be taking the month of August off as a break because I'm trying to give families a chance to regroup because we're going to be starting school. Everybody's having to get back into the routine of their schedules. There's a lot going on the month of August. I'm going to be traveling, so I'm kind of taking the month of August off from our book club to give everybody some breathing room, but we're going to start back up September 1st, and I would love for you to join us. So if you can, the book club, it's the best. It's so fun. We've had such great discussions. We've had so much fun talking about our books. We just finished the library book, which has been fascinating, a look at the inner workings of libraries and talking about the Great Fire of the library in downtown Los Angeles. But we have a great time in book club. We chat, we laugh, we talk about the book. Everybody shares their insight on what they thought about the book. I love that. I even get great book recommendations. One of our VIP members, Sherry, has recommended a book that I think we're going to be reading during the month of October. So I love getting to hear the books that you're reading. So if you would like to be part of our book club, I would love for you to join us. Here's how you can join us. Go to RoneHarden.com/contact. Click on Through the Pages Book Club. Drop me a note saying, I would like to know more about the book club. You can join us and you'll be on the email list to find out and get the advanced notice of our up and coming book reads, new books that are being dropped, new features that are coming to social media, all kinds of things in my private VIP group. And as always, you can check all of the live stream shows that I'm sharing with you guys on my YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/Ronnie Harden to catch any of the past broadcasts that I've done. But more importantly, you can join me back here because we're going to be back here next Saturday for our first live stream in the month of August. We'll see how everybody's doing, easing into the month. Whoo! I don't even want to talk about how many days till Christmas, how many shopping days we have till Christmas. Whew, can't think about that right now. But more than anything, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I know we've gone a little long. I try not to go long, but as we get into conversation, you guys make this time together so amazing, and I appreciate you so much. So thanks to all of the folks joining in live on my personal profile, all the pages, all the comments. I really appreciate you all. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And remember, read. It's the way to open your mind to new things and to new adventures, right? And new stories. I'm building mine. I hope you're building yours. And I hope you'll join me next week as we chat a little bit more from the editor's desk. Take care, guys. Thanks. Have a great weekend.